The silent invasion. The sky over New Angeles hadn't been truly blue in 17 years. Instead, it hung like a gray shroud, occasionally breaking into violent storms that dropped acid rain onto the protective shields covering what remained of human civilization. Ilara Kincaid stood at the observation deck of Tower 7, her eyes scanning the barren wasteland that stretched beyond the city's barriers. Once fertile farmlands and forests, now nothing but toxic dust and the skeletal remains of what used to be. Director Kincaid, the council is waiting. The voice belonged to Marcus, her assistant. Young, still optimistic despite being born into a world already dying. How many breathable zones left? Ilara asked, not turning away from the viewport. 23 globally, down 3 from last month. Marcus's voice carried the practiced neutrality of someone delivering bad news regularly. Agricultural Dome 5 failed yesterday. We salvaged 80% of the crops. Ilara nodded, finally turning away from the vista of destruction. At 42, she was one of the few who remembered clear skies and open waters. As Director of Resource Management, she knew better than most exactly how little time humanity had left. The math was simple and brutal. Resources declining, atmosphere deteriorating, population still too large despite the plagues of the 2040s. The council chamber buzzed with tense conversation when she arrived. 12 people responsible for the remaining 300 million humans alive on Earth. They fell silent as she took her seat. "We have a situation," said Chancellor Reed, the silver-haired woman who led the Global Survival Council. "Our deep space monitoring station has detected objects approaching Earth. 7 of them. Large. And they're slowing down." The chamber erupted in voices. After decades of failed attempts to contact other civilizations, after humanity had given up looking outward and focused on merely surviving, someone had found them. "How long?" Ilara asked. 3 days until they enter orbit," replied Admiral Chen, his weathered face unreadable. "If that's their intention." "We've received a transmission," Chancellor Reed continued, activating the central display. A voice filled the chamber, speaking perfect English with an accent impossible to place. "People of Earth, we are the Nilari. We have observed your struggle. We come with the means to save your world and your species. We come in peace. We come with hope." The message repeated 3 times before fading. "It's been broadcasting on all frequencies for 6 hours," Reed explained, "in every human language simultaneously." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "It could be a trick. We should prepare defensive measures." "With what?" Dr. Patel, head of Science Division, laughed bitterly. "Our satellite defense system can barely handle meteor threats. Whatever technology can cross interstellar space would overwhelm us in seconds." Ilara listened to the debate rage around her, her mind racing. Earth was dying. Every projection showed human extinction within 50 years as the atmosphere continued to degrade. If these visitors truly offered help, "We have no choice but to meet them," she finally said, but with caution. "One ship can approach. The others remain in orbit. We meet them outside the city shields, not inside our last strongholds." After hours of debate, the council voted 8-4 in favor of Ilara's plan. As the chamber emptied, Chancellor Reed caught Ilara's arm. "I want you to head the reception team," she said quietly. "Why me?" "Admiral Chen has more experience with potential threats." Reed's eyes, tired but sharp, met hers. "Because you remember the world before. You know what we've lost better than most. You'll recognize if what they're offering is real salvation or just another path to extinction." 3 days later, Ilara stood in the hastily constructed meeting facility in the neutral zone beyond New Angeles shields. Her protective suit was lighter than the standard models, a concession to diplomacy that left her feeling vulnerable. 5 other humans stood with her, 2 scientists, 2 security personnel, and Chancellor Reed herself. The Nilari ship descended in silence, a massive oval of material that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. It settled on the barren ground without disturbing so much as a dust particle. A seam appeared in its side, widening into an entrance. 3 figures emerged. They were tall, over 7 feet, with slender bodies covered in iridescent scales that shifted color with their movements. Their faces were almost human in arrangement: 2 eyes, a nose-like protrusion, a mouth. But the eyes were large, solid orbs of deep violet without pupils. The leader stepped forward, its mouth moving in perfect synchronization with the words, "I am Valen, emissary of the Nilari Confluence. We bring salvation to Earth. I am Chancellor Reed of the Global Survival Council. This is Director Kinkid, who will be your primary liaison." Reed's voice remained steady, betraying none of the awe Ilara felt at this moment. Valen turned those pupilless eyes to Ilara. "Your world is dying. The toxins in your atmosphere, soil, and water have reached critical levels. Your species has perhaps 48 years before extinction. We can reverse this damage." "How?" Ilara asked, finding her voice. "We possess technology to extract toxins from your environment, restore your atmosphere, and replenish your soil. We have done this for other worlds before." "And what do you want in return?" Ilara couldn't stop herself from asking the obvious question. Valen's mouth curved in what appeared to be a smile. "We ask only for permission to establish a small community in your Antarctic region. The conditions there are suitable for our physiology." It seemed too perfect, too convenient. Ilara searched the alien face for signs of deception, but found nothing she could interpret in those inhuman features. "We would need to discuss this with our full council," Chancellor Reed said. "Of course," Valen replied, "but do not delay too long. Your world grows more poisoned each day." The meeting concluded with an agreement for further talks. As the humans returned to New Angeles, the city buzzed with news of the alien arrival. Screens everywhere showed footage of the Nilari ship, of Valen, and the other visitors. For the first time in decades, Ilara saw something on people's faces she barely recognized: hope. But that night, as she reviewed the recordings of the meeting, something nagged at her. The Nilari had been too perfect, their offer too precisely what humanity needed, and they had known exactly how long Earth had left. A calculation that matched their most pessimistic internal projections, ones that had never been made public. "Computer, connect me to Dr. Patel," she said. The scientist's tired face appeared on her screen. "Ilara, it's late." The Nilari knew exactly how long Earth has before becoming uninhabitable. 48 years. That's not public information. Dr. Patel's expression changed. "You think they've been monitoring us? For how long?" "I don't know, but I want to review all unusual electronic activity for the past decade. Anything that might indicate surveillance. That will take time," Patel warned. "We may not have much. The Council votes on their proposal tomorrow." The proposal passed with overwhelming support. Within a week, the Nilari had established what they called a demonstration site outside New Angeles. Ilara watched as Valen and 5 other Nilari-operated strange machines that pulsed with energy, sending waves into the dead soil. "The process begins at the molecular level," Valen explained as Ilara and Dr. Patel observed. "These devices extract toxins and replace them with nutrients. The change ripples outward from each installation point. And you've set these up at all 23 breathable zones." Ilara confirmed. "Yes. You will see results within days." True to their word, within a week, the soil around the demonstration site showed signs of life. Small plants, engineered by the Nilari to thrive in Earth's damaged environment, pushed through the ground. Air quality readings improved by 20%. The public enthusiasm became fervor, with crowds gathering at the shield boundaries to catch glimpses of the alien saviors. Meanwhile, Dr. Patel's investigation yielded disturbing results. There have been anomalous signals originating from Antarctica for at least 15 years, he told Ilara in her secured office. "Nothing that would trigger security alerts, just data packets that our systems classified as atmospheric research." They were already here, Ilara whispered, watching us. There's more, Patil continued. The Antarctic signals increased significantly 3 days before the Nilari ships appeared. And they're building something massive down there now. The colony they requested. Much larger than what they described. Energy readings suggest a facility that could power a small continent. Ilara felt cold dread settling in her stomach. What else aren't they telling us? She assembled a small group, Patil, Admiral Chen, Marcus, and a few trusted others. They began monitoring the Nilari activities closely, particularly their Antarctic construction. What they discovered alarmed them further. They're installing some kind of energy network across the entire continent, Admiral Chen reported, showing thermal imaging from stealth drones, and their ships in orbit are bringing down materials constantly, far more than needed for environmental restoration. We need to see inside that Antarctic facility, Ilara decided. The mission was unauthorized and extremely dangerous. Ilara led a small team on a stealth aircraft, using a storm system for cover. They landed 10 miles from the main Nilari construction site and approached using terrain features for concealment. What they found defied expectation. The Nilari had built a vast complex beneath the ice, with structures extending hundreds of feet below the surface. At the center stood a massive device, a tower of pulsing energy reaching toward the sky. It's some kind of transmitter, whispered Patel, scanning with portable devices. Powerful enough to reach deep space. Who are they calling? Marcus asked. Before anyone could answer, alarms sounded. They had been discovered. Run, Ilara ordered, but it was too late. They were surrounded by Nilari security drones, herded into a containment field, and brought to a control center deep within the facility. Velen was waiting, those violet eyes somehow conveying disappointment despite their lack of expression. Director Kincaid, this intrusion was unnecessary. You could have simply asked for a tour. Would you have shown us this? Ilara gestured to the screens showing the massive energy tower. What is it really for, Valen? Who are you calling? Valen was silent for a long moment. It seems we misjudged how quickly your species would discover our true purpose. Perhaps that speaks well of you. No more evasions, Admiral Chen demanded. What are you really doing on Earth? Saving it, Valen said simply. Just not in the way you assumed. The alien activated a holographic display. It showed Earth, but different. Its continents reshaped, its atmosphere a different color. What you're seeing is Earth, 50,000 years ago, Valen explained, before the first Harvester invasion. Harvesters? Ilara asked. They came to your world once before, when your ancestors were still using stone tools. They consumed nearly all complex life forms before moving on. Earth recovered, eventually. Evolution began again. Valen's voice grew softer. But now they're returning. And this time, they won't leave anything behind. The hologram shifted to show massive black ships, angular and threatening, unlike the smooth Nilari vessels. The Harvesters destroy worlds. They've obliterated thousands of civilizations across this galaxy. We've been fighting them for millennia. Valen's scales darkened to a deep blue. The transmitter you discovered is not calling them. It's part of a defense network we're building to protect Earth. Why didn't you just tell us this from the beginning? Ilara demanded. Because fear leads to irrational decisions, Valen replied. We needed your cooperation to implement the environmental restoration quickly. That part was not a lie. Your world was dying. But we accelerated our plans when we detected Harvester scout ships at the edge of your solar system. A chill ran through Ilara. They're already here. The main Harvester fleet will arrive in approximately 6 months, Valen confirmed. The defense network must be operational before then. Your Antarctic continent provides the ideal energy conductivity for our technology. Admiral Chen stepped forward. If these harvesters are as powerful as you claim, how can you possibly defend against them? Valen's mouth curved into that almost smile again. That, Admiral, is where humanity comes into the equation in ways you cannot yet imagine. The final choice. The council chamber had never been so silent. Ilara had just finished presenting what they'd discovered at the Antarctic facility, including Valen's revelation about the harvesters. The holographic images of the massive alien fleet hung in the air, rotating slowly. "You believe them?" Chancellor Reed finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I've reviewed all the data," Dr. Patil answered before Ilara could. "The energy signatures they detected at the edge of our solar system match what they showed us. Something is coming." Admiral Chen leaned forward. "Even if these harvesters are real, how do we know the Nilari aren't just using us for their own purposes? Perhaps they're setting up Earth as a battleground to fight their enemy." Ilara had been asking herself the same question since their return from Antarctica. "I don't know," she admitted, "but they've kept their promise about healing our environment. The restoration progress is real." "And accelerating," added one of the agricultural directors. "We've seen 60% reduction in soil toxicity around all major population centers. The air quality has improved enough that we could potentially reduce shield usage by next month." Chancellor Reed stood, walking to the window that overlooked New Angeles. Below, citizens went about their daily lives, unaware of the existential choice facing humanity. "We need to speak with Valen again," she decided. "All of us. I want to know exactly what role they expect humanity to play in this defense." 2 hours later, Valen stood in the council chamber, accompanied by 2 other Nilari. Their scales shifted through colors as they observed the assembled human leadership. "The harvesters are drawn to living worlds," Valen explained, activating a display showing planets being systematically stripped of resources. "They harvest all useful materials, including biological matter, which they consider a resource like any other. They do not communicate, negotiate, or show mercy." "How have you fought them before?" Admiral Chen asked. "With limited success," Valen admitted. "We've driven them from individual systems, but never defeated them completely. Their numbers are vast." "And what exactly is this defense network you're building in Antarctica?" Chancellor Reed pressed. Valen's scales rippled to a deep purple. "It is a quantum displacement field. When activated, it will shift Earth slightly out of phase with normal spacetime. The harvesters will be unable to detect or interact with your world." A murmur ran through the council members. Dr. Patil looked skeptical. "That kind of technology is far beyond our theoretical understanding." "Yes," Valen agreed simply. "How long would this displacement last?" Ilara asked. "Approximately 50 of your years. By then, the harvesters will have moved on to other systems. When Earth returns to normal phase, they will be gone." Chancellor Reed's eyes narrowed. "And during these 50 years, what happens to us? To humanity?" Valen hesitated, scales flickering between colors. "The phase displacement would affect all matter on Earth. Your physiological processes would continue, but differently." "What does that mean?" Ilara demanded. "You would experience time subjectively as normal, but from an external perspective. Earth would appear frozen. When the field deactivates, 50 years will have passed for the rest of the universe, but for you, it might feel like only moments or days." Admiral Chen slammed his hand on the table. "You're proposing to put our entire species into some kind of stasis without our consent." "We are proposing to save your species from extinction," countered one of the other Nilari, speaking for the first time. "Both from your self-inflicted environmental collapse and from the harvesters." "And what about you?" Ilara asked Valen directly. "Will the Nilari in Antarctica also be caught in this displacement field?" Valen's scales darkened. "No. Our biology is incompatible with the field. We must depart before activation." The implications hit Ilara like a physical blow. The Nilari would save humanity, but at the cost of removing Earth from the universe for half a century. And during that time, the aliens would have no way to monitor what was happening inside the displacement field. They were asking for absolute trust. "We need time to consider this," Chancellor Reed said firmly. "You have 3 months before the defense network must be activated," Valen replied. "Choose wisely." As the Nilari departed, the council erupted into heated debate. Half believed the alien threat was real, and the Nilari solution was their only hope. The other half suspected deception, arguing that the harvesters might be a fabrication designed to trick humanity into accepting the displacement field for unknown alien purposes. Ilara found herself caught in the middle. The environmental restoration was undeniably real. The Nilari had delivered on that promise. But the displacement field raised too many unanswered questions. In the weeks that followed, Ilara led a team investigating every aspect of the Nilari claims. They analyzed the Antarctic facility, studied the partially completed defense network, and examined the data about the approaching harvester fleet. The quantum mechanics check out, Dr. Paddle reported after exhaustive testing. The field would work as they described. It would shift Earth into a parallel phase state. But there's something they're not telling us. What? Ilara asked. The energy requirements are enormous. The Antarctic generators aren't just powering a shield. They're drawing power from Earth itself. The displacement would essentially freeze our planet's core processes. Ilara felt a chill. What happens when we unfreeze? Patel's expression was grim. I don't know. No one could know. We'd be the first planet to ever experience this. Meanwhile, public opinion had divided sharply. As news of the harvester threat spread, many embraced the Nilari plan as their only hope for survival. Others formed resistance groups, suspicious of alien intentions. Protests and counter-protests filled the streets of every remaining city. Ilara found herself approached by both sides, respected as someone who had direct contact with the Nilari leadership. At a particularly tense public forum, a mother with 2 young children grabbed Ilara's arm. "My children deserve a future," the woman said fiercely. "If the displacement field gives them that, I don't care about the cost." Later that same day, an old man cornered her in a corridor. "I remember when the waters began to rise," he said, his voice shaking. "Everyone said we needed to trust the experts, the governments. They were wrong then. These aliens could be lying too." As the decision deadline approached, Ilara requested one final meeting with Valen, alone, away from both the Council and the Nilari entourage. They met at the edge of the restoration zone outside New Angeles. Young trees now grew where there had been only toxic dust months before. The air, while not perfect, was clean enough that they could speak without protective gear. "Your people are divided," Valen observed. "Yes. Half believe you're saving us, half believe you're deceiving us." Ilara watched the alien carefully. "I still don't know which group is right." Valen's scales shifted to a soft blue. "What would convince you?" Ilara Kincaid. "What proof would be sufficient?" Ilara considered the question. "Take me to see the harvesters. Show me they're real." Valen went still, those violet eyes fixed on her. "That would be extremely dangerous. I need to know the truth, not just data that could be fabricated." Direct observation. After a long silence, Valen nodded. "It can be arranged, but you must understand. Once you see them, there is no unseeing the harvesters." 2 days later, Ilara found herself aboard a Nilari scout ship, traveling to the edge of the solar system with Valen and a small crew. The vessel moved with impossible speed, crossing in hours distances that would take human ships months. "We will maintain a safe distance," Valen explained as they approached the Kuiper Belt. "Even their scout ships could destroy us easily if they detect our presence." The view screen activated, showing the darkness of deep space. At first, Ilara saw nothing unusual. Then Valen adjusted something, and the screen shifted spectrum. There they were. Black ships, angular and massive, moving with precision through the outer solar system. Ilara counted at least 30 before the screen's edge, and Valen informed her this was merely the advance force. The main fleet was 100 times larger. "They're conducting preliminary resource mapping," Valen explained, "identifying concentrations of valuable elements and biological matter." "Us?" Ilara whispered. "Yes. Humans represent a significant biomass resource to them. As they watched, one of the harvester ships fired something toward Pluto. The dwarf planet's surface erupted as the projectile hit, material flying into space to be collected by smaller vessels. "They're already harvesting," Valen said quietly, "working inward through the system. They will reach Earth in exactly the time frame we projected." Ilara couldn't speak. The harvesters were real. The threat was real. Whatever doubts she had about the Nilari's methods, their warning was genuine. "Take me back," she finally said. "I've seen enough." Upon her return, Ilara called an emergency council session. For hours, she described what she had witnessed, presenting the recordings from the Nilari ship. The evidence was irrefutable. "We have no choice," she concluded. "The displacement field is our only option. Without it, humanity ends in 6 months." The council voted unanimously to accept the Nilari plan. Over the next weeks, preparations began for what they now called the Great Pause. Food and resources were stockpiled. Security measures implemented to prevent panic or violence when the field activated. The Nilari worked day and night to complete the network, their ships constantly moving between orbit and Antarctica. 2 days before activation, Ilara stood with Valen in the Antarctic Control Center. The massive energy tower now pulsed with power, ready to envelop Earth in its protective field. "There's something you haven't told me," Ilara said, watching the alien carefully. "Something about what happens when we re-enter normal spacetime in 50 years. Valen's scales shifted rapidly, betraying emotion. "You are perceptive, Ilara Kincaid. Yes, there is one detail we omitted. Tell me now. When Earth returns, it will not be the same." Valen activated a holographic display showing Earth, but altered. Its continents slightly reshaped, its atmosphere different. "The displacement field will protect you from the harvesters, but it will also change your world at a fundamental level. Evolution itself will accelerate within the field." Ilara stared at the hologram. "You're telling me we'll evolve in 50 years. Not just your bodies," Valen explained. "Your minds, your technologies, your societies, everything. When Earth returns to normal spacetime, humanity will be different." "How different?" Valen's scales turned a deep green. "We cannot know exactly. But based on previous applications of this technology, you will likely have evolved beyond your current physical limitations. Your consciousness may operate differently. You may no longer be bound by individual bodies." The realization struck Ilara like lightning. "You're not just saving us from the harvesters. You're accelerating our evolution artificially." "Yes," Valen's admission was simple. "Why? Why not just tell us this from the beginning? Would your people have agreed? Would they choose to become something other than what they are, even to survive?" Ilara had no answer. The Nilari had manipulated them, but with the genuine intention of saving them, not just from the harvesters, but from their own limitations. "The council needs to know this," she finally said. "There is no time," Valen replied. "The harvesters have accelerated their approach. We must activate the field tomorrow, not in 2 days as planned. All Nilari must depart Earth within hours." "That's not your decision to make," Ilara protested. "It is the only way to save your species," Valen countered. "Sometimes salvation comes in forms we would not choose for ourselves." As they argued, alarms sounded throughout the facility. A Nilari operator called out in their strange language. "What's happening?" Ilara demanded. "Harvester scout ships have entered the inner solar system," Valen explained, scales paling. "They've detected our defense preparations. They're coming directly for Earth." On screens around the control center, Ilara watched as the black ships appeared first near Mars, then accelerating toward Earth. They would arrive in hours, not days. "We must activate now," Valen insisted. "All Nilari must evacuate immediately." Ilara's mind raced. The Nilari had deceived them about the full effects of the displacement field, but the harvester threat was undeniably real. Humanity faced extinction either way. from the harvesters or from transformation into something no longer recognizably human. "Wait," she said suddenly. "Your ships, can they take some of us? A portion of humanity that remains unchanged?" Valen seemed startled by the suggestion. It would be possible, but only a few thousand at most. And they would be refugees with no home. "But still human," Ilara insisted. "A contingency, a backup of who we are now, in case what emerges from the displacement field is no longer humanity as we understand it." The alien considered this an interesting solution. Not perfect, but wise. In the chaos that followed, decisions were made in minutes that would normally take months. Chancellor Reed authorized Ilara's backup plan. 1,000 volunteers, diverse in age, skills, and genetic background, were quickly selected and transported to the Nilari ships. As the harvester fleet closed in, Valen prepared to activate the displacement field. The Nilari ships, carrying their human passengers, prepared for immediate departure after activation. Ilara stood with Valen at the control panel. Outside, the sky had darkened as the first harvester ships entered Earth's orbit. "They will hunt those who leave with us," Valen warned. "I know," Ilara replied. "But some part of humanity should remain as we are, witnesses to what we were. And those who stay will become whatever we're meant to become next." Ilara took a deep breath. "Do it now." Valen activated the field. Energy surged through the Antarctic network, connecting points across the entire planet. The air seemed to thicken, to waver like heat above a road. "Goodbye," Ilara kinked. Valen said, scales shifting to a color she had never seen before. "When next you see the universe, it will be through different eyes." As the displacement field strengthened, Ilara felt time beginning to slow around her. Through the facility windows, she saw the Nilari ships rising into the sky, carrying the last unchanged humans away from Earth. Above them, the first harvester vessels were caught in the field's edge effects, their surfaces distorting before they slipped away entirely as Earth phased out of normal spacetime. Her last thought before consciousness shifted was not of fear, but of curiosity about what humanity would become in its chrysalis of altered time and space, and whether, 50 years later, they would emerge as something the galaxy had never seen before. The Nilari ships barely escaped the displacement field's expanding radius. As they accelerated away from the solar system, the refugees watched on view screens as Earth seemed to flicker and then vanish, leaving only empty space where their home planet had been. "What will happen to them?" asked Marcus, who had volunteered to join the exodus. Valen's scales shifted to a deep, contemplative blue. "They will change in ways we cannot predict. When Earth returns, humanity as you knew it will likely be gone. Something new will take its place. And us." Marcus gestured to the human refugees scattered throughout the Nilari fleet. "You are the memory of what humanity was," Valen said softly. "Perhaps someday you will meet what humanity becomes." The ships accelerated to faster-than-light speeds, carrying the last unchanged humans into the stars, while behind them, Earth began its 50-year transformation in a pocket of altered reality, hidden from the harvesters, but also stepping onto an evolutionary path from which there would be no return. In the vastness of space, the Nilari ships carrying human refugees became known as the Memory Fleet, preserving the legacy of what humanity had been before its great transformation. And across the galaxy, both allies and enemies of the Nilari watched and waited for the day when Earth would return to normal spacetime, bringing with it whatever humanity had become in its cocoon of accelerated evolution.